The towering mounds of Cahokia and similar sites are more than just architectural marvels. They are indeed the remnants of a thriving and complex society that existed thousands and thousands of years ago. But what was daily life like for the people who built these monumental earthworks scattered across the land? How did they live? How did they work? And how did they thrive in the shadow of these colossal achievements that we look at today? Speaking of today, that's what we're going to be doing, of course, stepping back into time in a sort of way to uncover the routines, the beliefs, and the culture of the ancient mound builders of America. The mound builders were a collection of cultures that spanned thousands of years, primarily across what is now the eastern and central United States. From the Adena and from the Hopewell cultures of the Ohio River Valley to the Mississippian culture centered around Cahokia and what is near modern-day St. Louis, these societies shared a remarkable talent for constructing massive earthen mounds, having a complex society with social hierarchy, and they also created magnificent artifacts that we still look at to this day. These mounds served various purposes, such as burial sites, ceremonial centers, and even platforms for elite residences. But beyond these grand structures lays vibrant communities engaged in agriculture, trade, very extensive trade at that, and of course daily survival. For the average person living in a mound builder community, life was more than likely centered around the village or a very local region. Most people probably lived very modest. They probably lived in wattle and daub houses. Wattle and daub houses were essentially structures made of just wooden frames plastered with mud and clay. These homes were more than likely clustered near rivers and streams. In fact, that's a fact because there's lots of archaeological evidence of this. And the reason they did this is because this is where the fertile soil was that allowed for more extensive and intensive agriculture. And speaking of agriculture, the main thing they were farming is pretty much what we farm in this region today, is corn and maize. This was the lifeblood of these societies. And it was probably introduced from Mesoamerica. Maize became a staple crop and backbone of their economy. Like I said, or their version of an economy. Like I said, pretty much how it is for us to this day. And alongside it, they also cultivated beans, squash, and sunflowers, which provided a relatively balanced diet when you combine that onto the fact that they also hunted a lot of different game. Women were often the primary agriculturalists, more than likely, and they were probably the ones that tended to the fields and ensured that the community had enough food to sustain them. Fishing and hunting also played vital roles in their diet. The men would have, of course, been the primary hunters, using things like atlatl darts way back in the day, and then eventually things like spears, bows, and different trapping methods to kill all kinds of game, ranging from bison to deer, ducks, you name it, they hunted it. They used fishing nets and different hooks that brought in fish all across the rivers and streams. The gathering of wild fruits and nuts and medicinal plants while they hunted added variety, and it played a crucial role for adding nutrients to their meals as well. Society in these communities was pretty highly organized, especially for the time. There seemed to be a ruling elite, This ruling elite they probably consisted of the best hunters, and probably people that knew the land the best, people that could navigate the land the best. These would have been looked at as like a chief, essentially. I think that would be the best way to name it. And then, of course, there was also more than likely some sort of religious aspect to it as well. So you could also say that there were priests of some sort, or shamans, we like to say. And these people lived atop of the platform mounds, overseeing different ceremonial centers and also more than likely managing the trade networks. These leaders were believed to have more than likely divine connections with the natural world, which would have, of course, reinforced their authority within the community. Artisans were another important class, and they probably also played a role in the elite society of the time. They did things like create intricate pottery, of course, the stone tools of which they heavily relied on, and they would have created other things like ornaments and art, which indicates a more sedentary lifestyle. If they're creating art and stuff like that, and they have time for that, then of course they're pretty settled down, right? Their craftsmanship was not only functional, but also symbolic, often reflecting spiritual beliefs and status. Meanwhile, laborers worked tirelessly, more than likely, to construct the mounds. They would have been using things like baskets and wooden spades to carry loads of dirt to the construction sites, a process that could potentially take decades depending on the site. And they also repaired sites over many, many generations, and by that I mean hundreds, sometimes even thousands of years. Spirituality was also deeply ingrained in the lives of the mound builders. The mounds themselves were sacred spaces designed with cosmological precision. Some mounds aligned with solstices or other celestial events, sometimes almost perfectly, serving as calendars for agricultural and ceremonial purposes. Ceremonies likely involved music, dance, and some sort of offering to the gods, the god of the sun or the god of maize. Items like effigy pipes, ceremonial blades, shell beads, and other ornaments, like copper ornaments, have been found in burial mounds, suggesting a belief in an afterlife. And these artifacts also indicate a culture that was rich in artistic expression, spiritual symbolism, and also, of course, like I said before, a culture that was more sedentary in nature. Trade was a cornerstone of the mound building economy, and despite living in isolated regions, they were connected to a vast network stretching from the Great Lakes all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico, possibly even further down to places like the Mayan Empire and all the way down to Colombia or Belize or places like this. I have videos talking about this theory. It's not set in stone by any means, but it is a theory. And if you want to check those out, I of course have those on my channel. Nonetheless, exotic goods like copper, mica, shells, and obsidian were transported across great distances, enriching their material culture. The ability to acquire such goods throughout the lands would have spoken to their advanced societal organization and economic sophistication. It also would indicate some sort of common language upon these people, perhaps some sort of sign language or chanting language. Who knows? But it wasn't just the goods that moved through these trade routes. It was ideas, it was technologies, and cultural practices also flowed as well, fostering a sense of interconnectedness among distant communities. Children in mound builder societies were integral to daily life, often helping their families with chores from a young age. Boys would have probably learned to hunt, fish, and make tools, while girls were taught more agriculture and things like pottery making, more than likely. Cultural knowledge would have been passed down orally through storytelling, ritual, chants, music, things like this. And elders would have played a key role, and they would have been highly respected in preserving and teaching the traditions and history of their people. Life for the mound builders wasn't without its challenges, and that's why the elders played a crucial role. Things like floods, droughts, and other environmental factors would devastate crops, leading to periods of scarcity. Having someone with experience in this situation plays a huge benefit. Conflict between neighboring groups was another reality, as evidenced by fortifications around some settlements. However, the mound builders were remarkably resilient. They adapted their agricultural techniques, built granaries to store surplus food, and maintained strong communal bonds to survive difficult times. The mound builders left an enduring legacy. Cahokia, for example, was one of the largest urban centers in pre-Columbian North America, with a population that rivaled European cities of the same period. In fact, Cahokia was larger than London during this time. At its peak, Cahokia was a bustling metropolis of farmers, artisans, and spiritual leaders, all working together to sustain their society, their common culture. And through the mound builders culture, though the mound builders culture eventually declined, their influence persists. Their monumental earthworks stand as a testament to human ingenuity and the ability to shape the land in service of community, spirituality, and survival. The daily lives of the mound builders were a blend of practicality and spirituality, innovation and tradition. They were farmers. They were artists, they were traders, they were priests, and most importantly, they were visionaries, united by a shared purpose and belief in the power of their community. As we gaze upon the mounds today, we're not just looking at ancient structures, we're witnessing the echoes of people who lived, who loved, and who dreamed beneath the same sky that we do today. Their story reminds us of the enduring human spirit and the timeless drive to leave something meaningful behind. Thank you for joining me today on this journey into the past, and if you enjoyed this exploration of the mound builders' daily lives, don't forget to like, subscribe, and please share this video with a fellow historian, and stay curious, because you'll see you next time in the next adventure throughout history. This has been Doogie from Doogie's Earthworks. I love you.